Hey, welcome back, friends and neighbors, to another edition of Somewhere Downrange. I'm your host, Brad, and today, just try to do a short little video. I'm testing a couple of things. Setting up this 450 Bushmaster. I tried some different brand stuff that I hadn't used before and encountered some issues that I had to take remedial action on. We're going to talk about those real quick. You remember the video where I was sighting this 450 Bushmaster in, testing loads. I was using a SIG Whiskey 3, and I had that in one of the Wrighton cantilever mounts, and it doing a good job in that once I got it all cinched down good and tight. So I went ahead and got another one of those mounts because I've got this Redfield Rebel 1. It's LVPO, for lack of a better term, and I wanted to use that same mount. It's QD, and I ran into a little bit of an issue with the fact that to put this scope in this mount without any real forward extension of the rings, I had to use the mount at the furthest front end, as far as you can go before you get to the handrail of the top rail. Now, that's no biggie, but I had to do it to utilize this scope because even at the furthest forward area, you can mount this without being over the handguard. This scope has to be really as far as you can push it in the mount. So I really would have liked to have gotten a mount that has a forward extension to the rings so that I could have it centered on the top rail of the receiver and still have room to adjust the scope. You can see the scope is sitting all the way forward as far as it can. It works. I made it work, but it was a little bit of a tricky issue. So I've had this on and off several times due to the fact that I also wanted to mount one of the Tac Star brass catchers because I use those on other ARs I've built, and I love the way they work, and they're hell for stout and they don't melt like plastic baggy mesh does with Caldwell. But because I have to put this Wrighton cantilever mount so far forward, the mounting block for the brass catcher would have to be out here on the handrail, and that wouldn't be any biggie except for the fact that when it's that far forward, due to the limitation of the adjustment groove on the bag, it won't center over the ejection port like it needs to. So I had to take a little remedial action on that as well. So like I said, I've had this mount on and off several times since I zeroed it last week, and I'm out here today, now that everything's in place and it's where I want it, to go ahead and recheck my zero on this scope, make sure it's still hitting where it needs to hit. So stand by, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about on these mounting points on the Tac Star. Stand by. All right, let's talk about that mounting point. Now, you can see I've had to put this Wrighton mount literally as far forward on the top rail of the receiver as I can. And I still have to have the scope as far forward in the mount as I can. But yes, you can get different mounts that have a little more extension to the rings. Cures that effect, but this is all I had the money for and the time to get, and I wanted to try it anyway. Save 50 bucks or 60 bucks on other mounts. It's still $100. All right, now normally brass catcher bag mounting point would be usually somewhere in this area. Obviously that area is no longer usable, so I thought to myself, well, maybe I can put the mounting point for the bag behind the mount. Well, that would be all fine, well and good, except for the fact that the adjustment slot on the bag frame isn't long enough to allow that to happen. And then once I tried to put it here, I ran into the point of this has to be tipped up, this end down, under the rail, and then the back has to fall down on the other side, and then you put your wedge plate back in there with the screw. Now, it would do it here, but it couldn't do it here or here because this deflector shelf is in the way. just by a little bit. So I actually had to do a little bit of remedial work on the bottom edge there. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't affect the way anything mounts up. It's just extra meat that it doesn't need in the first place. And once I took it off, I could get this to fit. Well, that was all fine, well, and good. But still, the bag, the adjustment rail, or the what I call a run or a gap, didn't allow for the bag to be adjusted to the point where, sitting on this mounting point, the bag would be properly centered over the ejection port. Stand by and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the plate that couples up to your mounting point, and there's a groove right here that literally has this much adjustment run. That's it. And with this block, even as close as I can get to the mount, that's as far as it's going to go. And that's really, it's only covering about half of the available ejection port area. That just isn't enough. So it wouldn't work, right? So I have several of these, and on this one, you can see that I have extended that gap all the way to the other side. I did this with some fine hand fitting precision filing and hacksawing, and I think I did a damn good job, really. Now it is centered on the ejection port, and it does, hopefully, a damn fine job, and we're going to find out. So stand by, let's see how she works. Alrighty then, got 6 rounds, some Hornady Black, large primers, piss me off, 250 grain FTX, that's what this weapon's sighted in and zeroed for. We're sighted in and zeroed, we're shooting at 50 yards, we're set for a 100-yard zero. Now, I've got a target down there on the target board. I'll show you an image of it real quick. Stand by. All right, you might have noticed that black line below center. That's where the rounds should be impacting. We're at 50 yards, we're zeroed for 100, so they should be just a little bit low, about a little under ½ an inch. That's where that black line is. That's where we want our group to be more or less impacting for up and down. Now, I've got that bag on, I've got it adjusted, the one that I did the custom cutting on. And everything appears to be tight. Got the scope set where I want it, so without further ado, we're going to do these first 6 rounds just focused on me and the bag just to see how it works. And then we'll turn the camera angle around to the target and get another magazine full. Stand by. And we have a bolt lock to the rear. Stand by, let's see what happened at the target. because it's a little different than what I expected. But when this weapon was zeroed, I was using small rifle primer factory ammunition. This is large primer factory ammunition, same bullet weight. And I think you're going to see a little difference. Alrighty then, there is a difference. Now this was my first shot, and honestly I felt the weapon start to move just as the trigger broke. The other 5 are just right here. That was the second one, then the rest are just right here in this little group. Now I'm not by any means taking my time trying to drill a single hole. I'm just shooting to see where my regular, basically snapshot type pictures impacts are landing. But this is 4 shots, just 1, 2, 3, 4, and they didn't just climb, they actually just went back and forth. So that's just me on the gun. I'm more or less just a little bit to the right of where I want to be, and we'll verify that by firing 6 more rounds. But just the fact that I've had it on and off the gun several times, and the fact that I have changed a component of the ammunition from small rifle primer rounds that would be hitting right here, now I'm using large rifle factory ammo and everything's hitting up here. That's a good 1.75 inches, almost 2 inches difference. So stand by, see where the rest of them go. Alrighty, now I took a little bit steadier hold and paid a little more attention to how I pulled the trigger. And we had one just rip up over here. I felt that one going bad, but the rest are right here on center, more or less for left and right. They're just somewhat high. I can't figure out what would cause that. The only thing I can think of is the fact that this ammunition, loaded with large rifle primers, has an effect on the muzzle velocity, has an effect on how the powder ignites, how the pressure wave builds, and how the recoil impulse generates the harmonic wave down the barrel. So switching from small rifle primers that I was zeroed for here to large rifle primers has shifted me up a good 1.75 inches, almost 2 inches. But still shoots a fine group. Stand by, let's talk about the brass catcher. Alrighty then. Not a bad group. It's a little higher than it should have been, but we've changed primers. That has created a difference. And it has printed the results of that difference on the target. But that's just a few clicks and I'm good to go. The brass catcher did its job flawlessly. 12 rounds, it didn't miss a one of them. And you saw the first 6 on camera, so did its thing. On there getting tight. She ain't gonna just jump off or throw herself off. I really like these brass catchers, and they ain't sent me none and they didn't pay me for it. This is just a shameless plug. They hold up a hell of a lot better than a mesh net will, especially to hot cartridges. Now, there are some drawbacks to everything. One of the drawbacks is the ability to adjust this to the proper spot you need it to be in, depending on where you have to mount your mounting point, your mounting block. I mean, if you can get it in front, at the front of the receiver, you're good to go. If you're running 2-piece rings, you're good to go. But if you're in a position where you've got to use a specific mount because it's all you can get your hands on at the time and your budget, and you need to mount this block to the rear, you're going to have to do some custom cutting like I did, or have one of your friends do. It's not that hard to do. You already have half of a line. You just put your straight edge on there, use your scribe, get your hacksaw, some files, do it right, take your time. It'll work fine. It does a fine job. So, make a few adjustments on the scope. I'm ready to roll, so I guess there's nothing to do but go home and give this baby a good cleaning. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you use these, just get it set up like you need it. And if you got to do a little custom cutting, do a little custom cutting. Shave a little material off the bottom of that block. It'll go over that deflector block. It just damn near goes on without doing it. But you got to take a little bit of meat off the bottom, not much, just enough for it to be able to go all the way and then go down on the other side. Well, I'm glad you came out. Thanks for seeing me. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed it. And like always, keep your ears peeled. You never know what I'm going to come up with next. Thanks for coming out, stopping by. I'll see you folks somewhere downrange. Bye.